covers at our Power of Young Hollywood. So excited to have her here. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How have you been?
I've been really good. Yeah, just chilling. My album came out like a month ago yesterday, and it's been like the craziest, most exciting month of my life. But yeah, I'm really happy.
I definitely want to talk all about Sour. I feel like the two things that stuck out most to me were your vulnerability in your songwriting, and then also just how musically diverse it is. So let's talk about the music first. When you were setting out to write it, what kind of made you want to involve all these different styles on the record?
Yeah, I guess it was never like a conscious decision to be like, I'm gonna make a really diverse record. I think I just like listened to all different types of music, and I'm inspired by so many different genres of music that it just sort of happened naturally like that. The only thing that was like an actual like push for me, I guess, was I like love writing sad songs, and I love writing breakup songs. I literally like wrote breakup songs before I had ever like held a boy's hand or like ever, you know, even remotely dated someone. I'm just like obsessed with like that sort of sad ballad. I really didn't want the record to be all sad ballads, although I love them. So it was sort of like just me trying to be like, oh, I want to like make some stuff that's upbeat and without having to sacrifice like what I'm actually feeling.
That's awesome. And the album begins with Brutal. And the first line that we kind of hear in the background is, I want it to be like messy, which I love. It's almost like a statement of intent in a way. Why include that in the beginning of that song?
I love that, thank you. Yeah, it is sort of a statement of intent, and I think Brutal just as an opening song is very much like, this is what the album is going to be like. This is the state of mind I am in while I am writing this album. But actually the I Want It to Be Messy thing was sort of an accident. I wanted there to be like crazy weird drums at the end of Brutal, like it was sort of like falling apart. And so Dan was, my producer Dan was recording me like playing all these weird drums, and I couldn't get it right, and I was like, no Dan, like I want it to be like messy. And he just like sampled that and put it at the beginning, which I thought was so brilliant. So it was an accident, but yeah, I love that being the first line that you hear on the record, because I think it's so indicative of the record as a whole.
Totally. And then, you know, the record is also very personal, you're very vulnerable on the record. And now that it's out, you know, how does it feel to have those emotions out there for everybody to listen to?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, at times it's a little scary. I definitely talk about like my deepest, darkest secrets and insecurities on Sour, which is sort of strange to, you know, be like, here, you guys can have this. Like anyone who wants to listen to it can listen to it. It's really empowering seeing like girls online like react to a song like Enough for You or something, and be like, you know, that's exactly how I felt. You know what I mean? That makes me feel so seen and so much less alone, and it's just really cool. And yeah, I think it's a brave thing to sort of put out music like that, but I'm really happy that I did.
Yeah, it's definitely brave.
Yeah.
Let's take it back all the way to the beginning. I want to hear about your musical upbringings. Like, what artists sort of inspired you to start songwriting in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about how our parents always played No Doubt.
Yes.
Love Gun's Funny. At my shoot that I was just doing upstairs, we were just like blasting Return of Saturn. But yeah, I definitely grew up on artists like that, like alt rock 90s sort of bands. My parents love like Pearl Jam and the White Stripes and Green Day and stuff like that. My first concert was a Weezer concert.
That's so cool.
So my parents are like very in that sort of lane of music, but I also like really fell in love with like country music from a young age too. I think I really like the songwriting and storytelling of it. You know, maybe when I was so young I didn't really realize that that was what I liked, but yeah, so stuff like that.
As you were growing up, how did songwriting kind of become an outlet for you?
Yeah, it's sort of weird. I've always written songs. It's like always been a thing. There was never like a moment where I was like, I'm gonna start writing songs. Like literally I was like 4 years old, and my parents have like videos of me just like making up random stuff. And so it's always just been something that I did. I think it wasn't until I was like 9 or 10 years old or something like that where I learned how to play piano and learned how to do chords, and like actually started writing them down and recording them and like listening to them back and trying to get better. But yeah, it's always been a thing, and especially lately, you know, going through so much, like being an older teenager, there's just so many like weird feelings that go along with that, you know, don't really happen to you when you're like 10 years old. So yeah, writing about sort of growing up and, you know, first heartbreaks and, you know, lessons like that, that's been really helpful to have songwriting as an outlet.
So you've been acting for a while on shows like Bizaardvark and High School Musical, the musical, the series. When you were growing up, did you want to be an actor or a singer first?
You know, I've always felt like I am sort of a singer-songwriter who sort of fell into acting and really loves that too. Music has always been like my thing ever since I was so little. But yeah, I really enjoy films and filmmaking and stuff like that. So I don't know what I'm gonna do in the future, TBD. But yeah, I've always sort of considered myself like a songwriter first.
Definitely, and we kind of get the best of both worlds on High School Musical because you sing and you act. But when did you kind of start thinking about maybe making that transition to having more of a music career?
Yeah, I think that's always been something that I wanted, just didn't really know how to like actually make it happen. But I wrote a song in High School Musical called All I Want, and I wrote it by myself, which was really cool. It was a very strange opportunity. You know, they were like, here, you're 16 years old and have no writing credits. Why don't you write this song for us? And it actually did really well. And so that's sort of how everything happened. But yeah, I've always sort of wanted it, and I've always sort of been writing songs, but writing songs for myself too. Yeah, because I think that's very important.
Were you a fan of
Yeah, I mean, I think our entire generation sort of grew up on High School Musical. I think the generation before us grew up on High School Musical, and I also think the generation after us will grow up on High School Musical, because that's just how it is. That you know, that concept is just so powerful. Like, we're both theater kids. We were talking about it earlier.
Yes, definitely an influence of mine.
So definitely grew up on those films, and it was a real honor to sort of be a part of a new revival of it.
Coming from Disney, and now you're kind of in the pop space, what have you learned from those who've come before you, like Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, all those people?
So much. I actually just met Selena
Wow.
like a week or two ago, and she was so kind. She talked to me a lot about like prioritizing mental health, which I think is really important in this industry, and I think all of us sort of were in the limelight very young, them more than I probably was, but that can be sort of taxing on your psyche and can bring about all these weird issues. So yeah, just putting yourself first and making sure to prioritize that. Definitely learned that from them.
Yeah, love that. And back to Sour, I know that it was originally supposed to be an EP, right? So when did you kind of say, okay, I want to write a full-blown album?
Yeah, it was like a couple days after Driver's License came out.
Wow.
And people always think it's like the other way around. Like, my label was like, you have to make a record, but I really called my label and I was like, you guys, I don't want to put out an EP. I want to make an album. I feel like I can do better than what this EP is. And they were like, girl, are you sure you're filming a show and we need it to be done in like a month or two? And I was like, no, I'm positive. This is what I want to do. So yeah, worked really hard and wrote a couple more songs and produced out a lot of the songs, and now we have Sour. So yeah, and I definitely feel like Sour is more like indicative of what I can actually do as a songwriter, and I definitely feel like the EP was not as good as I could have done. So I'm really glad that I'm putting my best foot forward, I hope.
Yes, definitely.
Sort of about life and, you know, relationships going sour. I think that's a really interesting visual. I think the word sour is like really visceral. I think of like spilled milk like spoiling when I think of sour. So I initially tried to write a song called Sour, but it didn't work. I couldn't write it for some reason, but I was like, but that concept is like there. I really like that concept, and it sort of spoke to a lot of the themes that I was talking about on the record, so I decided on that one. It also has my initials in it, OR, which is just an added bonus.
Yes, definitely. Do you have any response to the theory that's going on right now that your next record will be called Sweet?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I only have so much time in the day, and making a record is a lot of work, and it's very hard. Yeah, no response, but I don't, yeah, it's probably, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, it's hard to say.
Obviously on Sour, we came to learn that you are such a talented songwriter.
Thank you.
I'm curious as to when inspiration strikes you. Are you very in the moment with your songwriting, or do you kind of have to take a moment to process before you write?
Yeah, something that I learned recently about songwriting and just creativity in general is that you don't and you shouldn't wait for inspiration to strike. I think if you were waiting for inspiration to strike, you'd absolutely never write a song, or you'd maybe write like 1 or 2 songs a year. I don't know. So I think it's a real like practice that you have to get into, and sometimes I literally will like force myself to sit at the piano and write, and yeah, it's definitely like a, I don't know, like a practice that you have to do. And I think the concept of like, you know, waiting for an amazing idea to hit you and then you're going to write a song is sort of counterproductive. And that's not to say that I don't, you know, sometimes have ideas that'll, you know, flush out. But yeah, I think over quarantine, I wrote a song every day for like maybe like 4 months or so. Just sort of look at it as a craft and a discipline.
Yeah, and how is that practice cathartic for you? What do you get out of that process?
It's so cathartic. I'm like the most emotional person in the whole world, and so it's really nice to sort of put it out on paper. I mean, I'm a very anxious person, and when I'm anxious, I like to write down like everything that I'm anxious about, and then I can look at it and like process it, and it doesn't feel as big. And I think songwriting is just another sort of version of that. There's no greater feeling than like having an emotion that's really hard to express and writing a song that perfectly expresses it. It feels so great, and you know, it just makes everything in your head feel so much more manageable.
So back in January, you dropped a little song called Driver's License that I'm sure just kind of changed your world forever. Take me back to the moment. Like, was there a specific moment where you were like, wow, this is really happening?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it was the craziest time of my life. I was in Utah filming a show, so I wasn't even in LA or New York, which was sort of strange and awesome. But I think the moment that I knew it was like gonna be something big was I was sitting in the like a grocery store parking lot, and I like called my A&R guy, and it had just gone like #1 on Apple Music, like the Apple Music charts, which is like hard for like a pop act to do. It's like very rap heavy. I like called my A&R, and I remember just like on FaceTime with him, and we're just looking at each other, and neither of us had anything to say. We were just like so speechless, and we just like stared at each other for like a minute. And we were like, "You sing this? Yeah. You sing this? Yeah. What do we do? I don't know." Like that was the moment that I knew that, you know, it was going to be something sort of bigger than I expected.
Yeah, and through like breaking all those Spotify records and being at the top of the Hot 100 for 8 weeks, was there ever a time where you felt too overwhelmed by everything that was going on?
Oh, definitely. I felt overwhelmed about the whole thing. I still feel overwhelmed about it, like sitting in this chair right now. Yeah, it was so overwhelming, and I think it was definitely a crash course in not taking things personally also. I, you know, really had to learn, like, okay, you did your thing, you wrote a song that you feel proud of, and the rest is none of your business, and that was a really important lesson for me to learn.
Something else I'm sure, you know, kind of had you have like that moment of, wow, I'm really making it, was being on SNL in that SNL skit. Take me back to the moment. How did you hear that was happening? What was your reaction to them using your song?
Yeah, so SNL like actually didn't tell us that they were using the song before I watched it. One of my like mutual friends works on the show and was like, "Oh, I think like they're gonna like do something about driver's license tonight." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. They're gonna like mention it." Like, and they did a whole sketch about driver's license. And it was so complimentary too, which was awesome. That's obviously the biggest honor in the whole world to be talked about on, you know, SNL, and such a cultural moment. I feel like, yeah, that was awesome. And you know, I got to perform there a couple weeks ago too, so that was amazing. Definitely a dream come true.
Yeah, what was it like being on that iconic stage and one of your first like live TV performances?
Yeah, it was like my second performance ever. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
It was incredible. I totally grew up watching SNL every night or every week, and yeah, it was so cool. And everyone was so welcoming and so sweet, and all the cast members were lovely and just so brilliant. I was just so like taken aback by how like smooth that machine runs, and you know, everyone's just so smart, so it was great.
After Driver's License, you dropped Deja Vu. Something that I really love about that song is all the cultural references. We have Billy Joel and Glee, and I feel like you definitely have like a certain specificity to your songwriting. Why is that kind of important to you to weave in those cultural references?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. I try really hard to make my songs specific. I think specificity is one of the most important things you can do as a songwriter. I love songs where you can listen to them and sort of feel like you're in another world, like feel like you're immersed in the songwriter's worlds, and the way you do that is, you know, through imagery and details and stuff like that. So yeah, it's an important part of storytelling for, you know, anyone, regardless of whether you write songs or stories or whatever. Details are always, you know, the things that draw people in.
Are there any artists that you admire that also kind of use that same very specific style?
Oh yeah. I don't know. I've been like listening to like a lot of like Lana Del Rey lately, and she's so specific. And she's like so specific with like weird things too, which I love. Or like Phoebe Bridgers is so specific, and it's so beautiful the way that she does it. Yeah, I love her. She's great.
Good For You came out, and I feel like kind of flipped everything on its head sonically. You know, when you sat down to write that song, were there any of those influences kind of running through your head? And then how did you go about making it your own?
I mean, I love pop punk, and I love grunge and I love rock, and I've, you know, grown up listening to those, so I think it's just, you know, natural that it sort of became infused in my music taste and the way that I made music. But yeah, it was very important to keep it sort of 2021, and that's something we worked very hard to do, is, you know, put my own fresh spin on it and make sure it sounded like me and not like I was trying to recreate someone else. So yeah, and I love that song. It was a fun one to make.
Sour definitely spurred several trends on TikTok. I would say my favorite is probably using the lyric "like a damn sociopath" and kind of transforming and everything. When you were writing those lyrics, was there any thought in your head like these could go viral?
Yeah, no, that's so cool. It's so fun to see people like make TikToks to my songs. I try to like write songs without thinking about how they're gonna be perceived in the real world, because then I'll just like get so insecure and like not write anything. I'll just like shut down. But yeah, it's so fun to see people be creative with something you've created. I think that's a big like honor as a songwriter. I
know one of your favorite artists is Taylor Swift, and she's definitely been championing you on Instagram, and you met at the Brit Awards. What's it been like for you to, you know, have somebody that you look up to so much give you that recognition?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. You know, and I feel that way about so many other artists I did, you know, because the songs are like such like slices of my heart. Just to watch people be like so tender and loving with those slices of my heart was so cool, and I feel like very close to people who like listen to my music, because obviously my music is so vulnerable and personal, and I feel like they really like know me better than a lot of like people. So yeah, it's been really incredible, and just so grateful, and I hope that I get to like meet all of them in real life someday on tour.
Yeah, and as somebody who, you know, started out as such a big music fan yourself, has going from a fan to an artist changed your perspective on how you engage with your fans?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, a little bit. I identify as a huge fangirl though still. I'm a big fangirl even though I make music. Yeah. I'm a fangirl for life. Yeah, but it's I guess it's really cool to sort of have, you know, a fan base of people that I just like really enjoy. They're great people.
The social media rollout of Sour, I feel like, was very, you know, instrumental in the process. I noticed you kind of threw out a couple Easter eggs out there. There was that one with the "good for you," kind of teasing the date and the track number on the locker.
Right.
What has it been like for you to kind of plant those hints and watch people figure it out?
Yeah, it's so much fun. Like I just like love doing like visual stuff with music. Like I grew up on a set. You know, like grew up acting, and you know, acting is wonderful, but you don't get to have a lot of like creative freedom. You know, you get a script and you say what's on the script and you wear what you're supposed to wear, and it's been really cool for me as an artist and a musician to sort of be able to like make whatever I want happen. You know, I'm like, oh, I want to like do like an Easter egg locker thing, and like there are people who can like help me do that, and you know, I want this to be the music video, and it can happen exactly the way that I picture it. So that's been really fun and one of the greatest pleasures of my job, I think.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about persona. It's very Y2K. You have the butterfly logo, which I love.
Thanks.
And in the "Good for You" music video, you called back to several early 2000s films like Jennifer's Body and The Princess Diaries. So for you, how does kind of your style accentuate your artistry?
Clothes and like visuals is just another aspect of storytelling, which I love storytelling. That's like always what I try to accomplish in every piece of art that I make. I'm also 18, and I truly like some days wake up and I'm like, I have no idea what my personal style is. Like, let's just like take it day by day. So that's also been, you know, part of it too, is, you know, recognizing that it's always going to change.
Do you have somebody that you look up to as kind of a style icon or influence?
Oh, I'm obsessed with Zoe Kravitz's style. I'm obsessed with Devin Carlson. I'm like wearing her shirt right now. Yeah, those two girls. I just love people who just like kind of have like weird, like edgy stuff.
Speaking of kind of an aesthetic, I'm assuming, you know, you're hoping to go on the road soon. Have you thought about like how you want that to look and feel?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love going to live shows, and the thought of like creating a live show experience for people is just so exciting to me. Definitely that's gonna happen very soon, and I'm so excited to dive into that stuff.
Do you have a favorite lyric that you've written on Sour, and why is that your favorite lyric?
Oh my gosh. I always say my two favorite lyrics are "Hope he took his bad deal and made a royal flush," and "I cross my heart as you cross the line." I don't know, those are just the two that I'm the most proud of, but Yeah, it's also fun to like have it come out and see what lyrics people gravitate towards, because you never know until it like comes out, so that's been a fun thing.
I guess my last question would just be, is there anything that you can kind of tease for us about your next project or what you're looking to do in the future?
I have no idea what my next project is going to be. I don't know what I'm eating for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just really excited for Sour to be out in the world. And yeah, I don't know what comes next, but I'm really excited for it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Loved having you here.
Oh my gosh, it was an honor.
Awesome. And stay tuned for the rest of Variety's Creators Fest.